The hospital smelled like antiseptic and fear. Bright white lights burned above my head, too sharp for my half-open eyes. Everything felt distant, like I was trapped underwater, and the world above was happening without me. I could hear sounds, but they didn't fully belong to me anymore. Machines beeping, hurried footsteps, clipped voices that came and went like waves. Blood pressure dropping. Prepare adrenaline now. Someone was shouting my name, but it sounded wrong, stretched out, like it didn't belong to the body I was still trying to hold on to. I didn't know how I got here. All I remembered was the crash, metal screaming against metal. A sudden impact that turned time into fragments. Then darkness. Then this endless, floating in-between place where pain existed, but had no clear shape. My chest burned. Every breath felt borrowed. I tried to move my fingers. Nothing responded properly. My body was heavy, like it had been filled with stones instead of blood. Somewhere nearby, a monitor screamed louder for a second, then steadied into a weaker rhythm. "Stay with us," a voice said gently. "Don't go yet." I think it was a doctor, or maybe an angel pretending to be one. Outside the glass doors of the ICU, I could sense movement. Shadows gathered, family. They didn't come in immediately. I couldn't see them clearly, but I knew they were there. I could feel it in the way the air changed, heavier, colder, more complicated. Voices filtered through the walls, muffled but sharp enough to cut. "She's not responding to treatment," one doctor said. A pause, then another voice. "My uncle, I think. So what are the chances?" "Low," the doctor replied. "But not zero. We can still stabilize him if we continue aggressive intervention." There was silence after that. A long, suffocating silence that made my heart feel like it was waiting for permission to keep beating. Then I heard her voice, my sister, soft, controlled, too controlled. "What happens if we don't continue?" The question didn't belong in that room. Even through my fading awareness, something inside me tightened, a warning, a flicker of confusion that cut through the fog. The doctor hesitated. "You mean withdrawal of support?" Another silence followed, heavier this time. My sister spoke again, slower. "If his heart stops, do not revive him." The words didn't make sense at first. Not revive him, not me. My chest tightened as if my body understood before my mind did. Machines beeped faster for a moment, reacting to something inside me. Panic, maybe. Or recognition. "No CPR," the doctor asked, clearly surprised. "No." Another voice answered my father this time. Firm, final. "If it happens, let it be." The world tilted. Something inside me cracked, not physically but deeper. Like a belief I didn't know I had was suddenly being torn out. Let it be. I wanted to shout, to move, to ask why. But my mouth wouldn't obey. My voice was buried under tubes and exhaustion and betrayal I couldn't yet fully understand. Through blurred vision, I imagined them standing there. My family, the people I trusted without question. The same people who once sat beside my bed when I had a fever, who told me I was strong, who promised I would never be alone. Now they were deciding how quietly I should disappear. A pen scratched paper outside the door, a signature. Then another. The sound was small, almost polite, but it felt like something permanent being carved into stone. DNR order confirmed. A nurse said softly, "Do not resuscitate." I didn't fully understand the words at first, but I understood their meaning. They weren't just letting me die. They were instructing the world not to bring me back. A machine beeped unevenly beside me, as if confused by my thoughts. My sister's voice came again, quieter now, fractured at the edges. "Please don't make this harder." Harder for who? The question echoed inside my fading mind, unanswered. I tried to turn my head, to look toward the glass, to find her face. But my body didn't listen. I was trapped inside it like a locked room with no exit. The doctor's voice softened. "We will continue comfort care. Comfort care." Another gentle way of saying, "We stop fighting." I felt something warm slide down the side of my face. A tear I didn't know I still had the strength to produce. Outside, footsteps began to move away, slow. Relieved final, my family was leaving and I was still alive to hear it. Time stopped meaning what it used to. In the ICU, there is no morning or night, only the rhythm of machines pretending to be life. Beep, pause, beep, pause. Each sound feels like a question my body is too weak to answer. I was still there, barely, not fully awake, not fully gone, something in between, like a name being erased slowly from memory, but never quite disappearing. The pain had changed shape. It was no longer sharp. It was distant, like it belonged to someone else lying in my place. My body felt heavier than stone, yet lighter than thought, as if I could float away at any moment and no one would notice. Voices came and went, sometimes clear, sometimes broken. A nurse adjusting something near my arm whispered, "He's still holding on." Another voice replied, "For now, for now." That phrase stayed with me longer than anything else. Outside the room, I could sense movement again. Not urgency this time, not panic. Something colder, my family. They didn't sound like they were crying anymore. That was the first thing I noticed. No broken voices, no desperate pleading, just controlled conversations, like people discussing something already decided. She signed it. Someone said my uncle again. There was a pause. Then my father. "Good, it's done." Done. As if I were a task completed, as if I were not still here listening. My chest tightened with something that wasn't physical pain. It was recognition. The kind that comes when reality finally matches a fear you never wanted to name. A monitor beeped faster. A nurse quickly adjusted something. "His heart rate is unstable," she said. Footsteps rushed in. "Administer sedative." Another voice ordered. The world softened again at the edges, like it was being dipped in warm water. Sounds stretched, lights blurred. My thoughts slowed until even fear became heavy. But even in that fading space, I heard her. My sister, she was closer now. Maybe just outside the curtain separating life and death in this room. "I didn't want it like this," she said quietly. No one answered her. Silence can be louder than machines in places like this. Then another voice, calmer, sharper. "You agreed." "I didn't have a choice," she replied. Something in her tone cracked at the end just slightly. A fracture she tried to hide. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe she was different from the others. But belief itself felt fragile now, like glass already shattered and still holding its shape out of habit. I tried to remember her face, smiling, calling my name, standing beside me in ordinary days that now felt like someone else's life. But memory was slippery. Every time I reached for it, it dissolved. A machine alarm suddenly cut through everything. Sharp, loud, violent, blood pressure dropping. Prepare for code. Code, that word again. Not my name. Not my identity. Just a situation to be managed. Footsteps rushed around me. Hands touched my body, pressing, adjusting, fighting something I could no longer fully understand. My chest jerked slightly under pressure. Pain flickered, then disappeared. I was slipping. Somewhere far away, I heard my sister's voice again. Closer this time, almost inside the room. "Is he suffering?" A pause, yes. A doctor answered honestly. Another silence, then her voice softer than before. "Don't let him suffer." I didn't know whether that was mercy or surrender. Maybe both. The machines began to stabilize again, but weaker now. Like even they were tired, time blurred further. The edges of everything softened until I could no longer tell where thoughts ended and dreams began. In that drifting space, I saw fragments, a document on a table, A signature, my name written in places I never agreed to sign. Hands moving too quickly, whispers that stopped when I tried to focus. And always, always, my sister standing just slightly apart from the rest, close enough to be involved, far enough to deny everything. Then I heard something that cut through everything else. A nurse speaking quietly near the doorway. They've agreed to no escalation. If he arrests again, we let him go. Let him go. Not save, not try. Let go. My heart reacted before my mind could. A sudden spike. A weak protest from a body that was already losing its argument with death. Beep, 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 slower now. Longer gaps. Like the world itself was hesitating. Through the haze, I thought I heard footsteps retreating. Not toward me, away. And in that final drifting moment of awareness, I understood something I wasn't ready to accept. I was still alive, but they had already started treating me like I wasn't. I don't remember the moment I officially stopped being unconscious. There was no dramatic return, no sudden light, no clean break between darkness and awareness. It was more like drowning in reverse, slowly being pulled upward through layers of heaviness until sound returned first, then pain, then the unbearable awareness of being alive. At first, I thought I was still dreaming. The ceiling above me was white, too white, the kind of white that doesn't belong to the real world, only to places where people are kept alive by machines instead of their own will. A steady beep, not chaotic anymore, controlled. I blinked slowly. It hurt. Everything hurt in a way that felt distant, like my body had been borrowed and returned in worse condition. My throat burned. Something was inside it. A tube. I tried to move my hand. It responded, but weakly, like it had forgotten how to obey. And then I heard a voice. You're awake. A pause. You're safe now. Safe. That word didn't belong in my life anymore. A doctor stepped into view. Young. Tired eyes. The kind of face that has seen too many almost deaths in 1 week. You were very critical, he said carefully. We had to perform emergency intervention when your heart stopped briefly. Heart stopped. The sentence landed slowly, stopped, then restarted. That meant I had been gone, at least for a moment. And someone had brought me back. I tried to speak, but only a rough sound came out. The doctor adjusted something near my face. Easy, he said. You're stable now, but weak. You've been in ICU for a while. A while. Time had become something I could no longer measure. I wanted to ask about my family, but even thinking about them made something inside me tighten. The doctor hesitated, as if deciding what truth I was allowed to hear. They were informed, he said finally. That wasn't an answer. It was a shield. Days passed, or maybe hours. I never knew. Recovery in the ICU is not healing. It is negotiation between body and survival, between mind and memory. Between truth and what people are willing to tell you. I began noticing things. The first time I was able to fully open my eyes, I saw my sister standing near the doorway. She wasn't crying. That was the first thing that felt wrong. Her hands were clasped tightly, though, too tightly, like she was holding herself together by force. When she saw I was awake, she froze, just for a second. Then she stepped forward slowly. You're back, she said. Her voice didn't sound relieved. It sounded careful, like someone stepping around broken glass. I tried to smile. It came out wrong. She looked at the monitor instead of me. I thought, she began, then stopped. Thought what? That I wouldn't wake up. That I shouldn't have. She swallowed. You scared everyone, she added quickly. Everyone. Not me, not us. Everyone. After that, she didn't stay long. None of them did. My father came once, stood near the bed like he was inspecting something that had already been resolved. You're improving, he said flatly. Not I'm glad, not you made it. Just improvement, like I was a report. My uncle avoided my eyes entirely, and my mother, she never came inside the room at all. But it was my sister who haunted the silence the most, because she kept appearing and disappearing, like she wasn't sure whether she belonged on my side of the glass anymore. One afternoon, I overheard a conversation outside the curtain. Her voice low, controlled. "But he's conscious now. That changes things." A pause. Then my father's voice. "It doesn't change anything that was decided." A longer silence followed. Then she said something I will never forget. "I didn't think he would wake up." The world inside me went still, not the body, something deeper. A realization forming slowly, painfully, like a bruise becoming visible under skin. She had expected me to be gone, not hoped, expected. My breathing became louder in my own ears. I lay there pretending I hadn't heard anything. But everything had already changed, because survival is not always victory. Sometimes it is the beginning of understanding who tried to erase you and why. And in that hospital bed, surrounded by machines that once decided I was not worth saving, I finally understood. I hadn't just survived an accident. I had survived a decision made about me without me, and someone in my own bloodline had been standing too close when it was made. Recovery changed the way silence felt. Before, silence in the hospital was empty, just machines and white walls swallowing time, but now silence had texture. It had meaning. It had hidden conversations buried underneath it. I learned to listen differently, not to what people said, but to what they avoided. They thought I was still weak, still recovering, still grateful to be alive. But something had shifted inside me the moment I heard my sister say, "I didn't think he would wake up." That sentence didn't leave my mind. It stayed, repeating itself quietly in the background of every breath I took. When I was finally discharged, no one celebrated. There were no tears of relief, just signatures, discharge papers, and quick instructions about medication. My father barely looked at me. "You'll recover fully at home," he said. "Don't stress yourself. Don't stress yourself." As if stress was the problem. As if betrayal wasn't heavier than any medical condition. My sister drove me home. The ride was silent for most of the journey. Roads passed like blurred memories. At one point, she finally spoke. "You should just focus on getting better." Her hands were tight on the steering wheel. I turned my head slowly toward her. "And after that?" I asked. She hesitated. "That's all that matters," she said, but her voice cracked slightly at the end. That crack told me more than her words ever could. Days turned into quiet observation. I stopped reacting like I used to. Instead, I started noticing everything: the missing hospital reports, the sudden change in insurance documentation, the way conversations stopped when I entered rooms, the way my father avoided discussing the ICU entirely, and most importantly, the way my sister couldn't look directly at me for more than a few seconds. Something had happened in that hospital, something they didn't want me to fully understand. So I began digging quietly, carefully. I requested my medical records under the excuse of follow-up clarity. I spoke to nurses who remembered me. One of them hesitated before saying something strange. There was pressure from family regarding resuscitation limits, but one doctor didn't fully agree. That sentence opened a door I didn't know existed. A doctor who refused. A note missing from records. A temporary reversal of the DNR when my heart stopped. They had tried to let me go, but someone had pulled me back anyway. And that act of survival had exposed something they couldn't control. Truth doesn't always explode loudly. Sometimes it builds quietly until it becomes undeniable. The final confirmation came one evening when I accessed a copy of the signed DNR form. My father's signature, my uncle's, and my sister's. Her name was there. right beside the decision that told doctors not to revive me. My hands went cold, not from shock, from clarity. She hadn't just been present. She had agreed, but I didn't confront them immediately. Revenge is not always anger. Sometimes it is patience, so I waited and I collected everything, the timestamps, the inconsistent medical notes, the witness statements, the contradiction between what doctors documented and what my family claimed later, and most importantly, the testimony of the doctor who saved me against protocol. When everything was ready, I didn't shout. I didn't argue. I called a lawyer. Then I called a meeting. All of them came expecting confusion, maybe emotional distress, maybe forgiveness. Instead, I placed everything on the table, printed records, signed forms, medical statements, audio recordings where hospital staff confirmed what had happened. The room went silent as each page revealed a truth they had buried too deeply to ever expect resurfacing. My father's expression hardened. My uncle avoided eye contact, and my sister, she just stood there, falling apart quietly in real time. "You don't understand," my father began. "I understand everything," I interrupted calmly. That was the first time I spoke without shaking. The first time I wasn't the one being decided for. I turned toward my sister. Her eyes finally met mine. For a second, she looked like she wanted to speak. But nothing came out, so I spoke for her truth instead. "You didn't stop them," I said softly, "but you signed it." Her lips trembled. "I didn't think you would die," she whispered. I nodded slowly. "That's not the same as trying to save me." Silence filled the room again. But this silence was different. This one wasn't empty. It was consequence. I didn't seek destruction. I didn't need screaming revenge. What I chose instead was worse for them. Truth, legal truth, emotional truth. Irreversible truth. By the end of it, nothing in that family remained unchanged. Trust broke in places it could never be rebuilt. And as I walked away from the table, I finally understood something clearly. I had not come back from death just to survive. I had come back to make sure the truth did not stay buried with me.